Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm pleased to welcome Victoria Cook, IOSH Category Manager, who is here to deliver a presentation about IOSH's qualification, the Level 3 Certificate in Safety and Health for Business. Victoria led the team who developed this course, working with top organisations such as Skanska and Thames Water to ensure the qualification delivered not only technical safety and health skills, but also the business skills desired. So with all that said, I shall now hand you over to Victoria and hope you will enjoy the session.
Hello, I'm Victoria Cook, work as a product manager, a category manager here at IOSH. So as Joe kindly said, led the team who developed this course. What we want to do today is run through with you everything that we think you need to know about the IOSH qualification, hopefully kind of answer some really kind of important questions that I'm sure you're all kind of wanting to ask, and fingers crossed at the end we'll be in a position where you know everything you need to know and you can kind of march on forward and help us wave that flag of the new kid on the block. Right, so the IOSH, NCFE IOSH Level 3 Certificate in Safety and Health for Business, so-called NCFE IOSH because, as you will likely already know, IOSH aren't an awarding body. So what we had to do, first of all, is kind of choose the right approach. What we chose to do was actually partner with a well-respected and well-thought-of and like-minded awarding body who like to make sure that every qualification that they develop and every qualification that they support is actually employer-led and employer-driven to make sure there is a demand in the workplace for it. And with that in mind, we partner with NCFE to create a qualification that hits the technical aspects of safety and health, but also really looks at that in a business context. So not only will you get those technical knowledge and skills, you'll get techniques and different ways of actually putting those into practice in the workplace. We've done some research, as you would expect, and that research did show that they want their safety and health professionals to become agents of change. They want to be able to apply technical knowledge. They want to make sure they've got not only those technical skills, but loads of, not sure if everyone's keen on this phrase, but soft skills, business skills, really being able to take the technical knowledge that they are up to the gills with and transfer that into something that can be understood by anyone and everyone within an organisation. If you're there trying to talk to your board, trying to talk to senior leadership, how do you turn that into something that's engaging for them and that they will understand? So those sorts of skills are completely vital. And of course, this qualification supports organisations to integrate safety and health fully into business operations right across the value chain. And that's within any organisation, any sector, anywhere in the world. This really does look at those principles and try to ensure that it can be used across the globe. So, first of all, international recognition. So the qualification is recognised internationally, England and Wales at level 3 on the Off-Qual framework, and in EU, England and Wales at level 4 on the EQF framework. It is also at the moment recognised by the KHDA in Dubai. We're always working on this, so there is work being done at the moment to try and get this qualification recognised in a number of other areas across over, and of course those sorts of things and those sorts of endeavours take a little bit of time, but fingers crossed we'll get there in the coming months. Okay, so first of all, let's start off with the units. So Unit 1, this started off life as kind of the employee module, if you like. We thought of it as, what do you need to do as an employee in your day-to-day work, in your day-to-day role? What's your responsibilities and what do you need to be aware of? So this one really does build on top of managing safely. I will come on to the build on bit in just a moment as well. So this one looks at your responsibilities, your legal requirements. It looks at health and safety management systems, risk management, and health hazards, safety hazards, workplace welfare, things like that. It also then goes on to emergency planning, incident investigation. So this unit really is, as I say, the technical knowledge. It builds on managing safely, giving you the required depth to take you to that level 3 position and to make sure that you have the relevant knowledge also to get you to the IOSH technical membership. Unit 2 started off life as, again, working title, the people unit. This unit really does then look at things like safety culture, looks at values, behaviours, behavioural safety, for example. This unit looks at, why people do what they do. It looks at the values within an organisation. It looks at cultures. Really simple example, day in, day out, you're asking an employee to wear their PPE on a site, in an office, in a manufacturing warehouse, wherever. You're asking them day in, day out to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. What you want to do is understand why they are doing what they're doing. It can't be as simple as, asking them every day to make it work. You've got to get to the root cause. So again, a bit of a root cause analysis, if you like, figuring out, is there something stopping them from doing so? Is it actually restrictive and actually slowing them down? Is it that it doesn't fit properly and actually something else needs to be done about it? Or is it excessive, and maybe that needs to be relooked at? So obviously that's a really simple kind of area to look at, but it's this section here that really looks at the core of the organisation, looks at behaviour, looks at values, and tries to understand how those things, when in practice in an organisation, how changing to a more positive safety culture and using different skills such as safety coaching and mentoring, how those things can make a positive improvement. And then Unit 3, understand a strategic business-focused approach to safety and health. This really is looking at the organisational approach. So why do we need to do everything that we need to do to build a better future in safety and health? How is it going to impact a business? What's the business benefits? What are the actual kind of factors that you need to watch, and what sort of things affect an organisation? I think this section here really does kind of bring it into that business focused agenda. So by getting health and safety right in a value chain, you are going to, see improved sickness absence, you will see improved productivity, you will see return on investment. So for every kind of pound you invest, or euro you invest in safety and health, you'll get double that back as a return on investment. And it's how we turn those sorts of facts and figures into something tangible and we can use and help business professionals and safety professionals to understand that investing in safety and health in the long run is one of the most profitable things that you can do as an organisation. Okay. So some high-level learning objectives. There are a number of different learning objectives, as you will imagine, but some of these that I've put onto the slide for you here. So looking at internal and external roles, how they affect safety and health, exploring the main function and aims of an organisation and how the strategic drivers will affect its operation, learning about monitoring safety and health performance and how improvement plans can be used to enhance practice, and understanding organisational culture and techniques that can help develop a better safety culture within an organisation. What I've just got in front of us at the moment is a few extracts, some pieces that you will see in the materials. So, of course, we provide things like lesson plans. These are guidelines, they aren't rules. We essentially will go through the learning and the trainer notes and the units, and we will provide what we feel is an appropriate breakdown with some suggested learning methods to cover all the content for the qualification. we also provide you a unit overview, so every time you get to the next unit, you can really see top line what it is that you'll be delivering for those. Next, self-study requirements. So I'll come on to the breakdown of the units and the time in a moment, but there are self-study requirements for the delegates, and so we do break that down and recommend to you where those bits are covered and at what time by the delegates. And also then trainer notes. Of course, as with things like managing safely, working safely, we give you some really thorough trainer notes. As I say, they're guidelines, they aren't rules, so those things we'd love you to give your artistic flair and change them as you see fit. But this will, give you everything that you could possibly need to ensure that everything is covered in the time required. Okay. Next we'll come on to the guided learning hours. So I've put a bit of a matrix in front of you there. Unit 1, the assessment method for that unit, which we'll come on to a little bit more in a moment. But the delegates required to develop and write a business case. That business case is to either implement or improve a safety and health management system within an organisation of their choice. That could be an organisation they already work in, it could be somewhere they have previously worked, or it could be just somewhere that you have spent a lot of time. So it could well be something like that you've spent a lot of time in college and uni and you think that maybe you should be looking at theirs. But really this assessment method is practical. It's something that can be used moving forward as a skill. And I think what it really does is turn the knowledge and information that they've learned into something practical and usable on a day-to-day basis moving forward. The guided learning hours for Unit 1 is 24 hours, and self-study and assessment is 29 hours. We don't break the self-study and assessment into two sections, really because the self-study and assessment is the responsibility of the delegates, and it's up to them really how long they want to spend on their assessment and pulling that together, and actually how long it takes them to get through the self-study requirements. Everyone learns at different paces, but essentially that needs to be tracked, and the total hours need to be met. The Unit 2, understanding how to influence a safety and health culture. The assessment method for that is a research project. So you'll be doing primary, secondary research, looking into the culture, values, behaviours within an organisation, and suggesting ways in which that potentially that could be improved. This will see delegates doing things potentially of safety coaching, mentoring, question and answers, things like that, to try and get a real feel for the culture in their organisation or in an organisation of their choice. And then pulling that together as a bit of a portfolio. The guided learning hours for the whole of Unit 2 are 18. And the self-study and assessment then is 16. For Unit 3, understanding the strategic business-focused approach to safety and health, the assessment method for that is developing and delivering a presentation. This presentation is aimed to be directed towards senior leadership, senior management, or even the board. The presentation is to be on an element of a value chain, to understand the strategic drivers affecting that value chain, its main functions, and essentially looking at how to improve safety and health within one part of that value chain. They'll then present those findings in a recorded presentation and support that with their kind of presentation notes and any research that they have done to pull that presentation together. 18 hours guided learning hours for the Unit 3 face-to-face, and then 16 hours of self-study and assessment there. So as you can see, the total comes to 60 hours of guided learning, which, as I've mentioned, is 10 days of taught sessions on average, but it does depend on how long your days are, and also 61 hours of self-study and assessment. Total is 121 hours. Which moves us on quite nicely to things like prerequisites and RPL. So there is a prerequisite of managing safely for the qualification, as I mentioned earlier, Unit 1 really is built upon the kind of foundations of managing safely. So we like that to be something that they've done within a recent amount of time, 3 years, and that would include things like the refresher or any tailored versions of Managing Safely. So if they've done Managing Safely refresher within 3 years or a tailored version of Managing Safely following our syllabus, that would also be accepted. But as I say, it's built on the foundations of Managing Safely, and it is that ideal next step. In doing Managing Safely, as a prerequisite, RPL is then considered, and that can then lower the required learning hours. In the case of this Managing Safely course, it takes 15 hours from Unit 1, taking that to 106 hours of a total qualification time. Okay, I'll move on now to the assessments. I mentioned the types of assessments that the delegates would be doing. They are project and practical work. They are kind of vocational, so they're really useful in the workplace, and also they'll give the well-needed skills that I think all employers and organisations are looking for. There are no sit-down exams, so the assessments are created by NCFE, they're marked by a training provider and then quality assured by IOSH, and they're done at a time and place that suits both parties. So there is no need for an assessment centre. These assessments are done, as I say, in more of a portfolio way, so they can be done either in the workplace or they can be done in the learner's own time at home. And they will then be presented to the training provider for marking when requested. And it is pass or fail only. So there are no resits, just appropriate guidance to be offered by the training provider ahead of submission. What we mean by that is, rather than having the delegates send in an assessment, a presentation or a business case, and having that sent straight off for marking and a pass or fail at that point in time, it means we can be a bit more flexible. So training providers then can give guidance. They can say, for example, this business case appears to be missing a few things. You might want to go and revisit these areas of the textbook. You might want to make sure that you're maybe focusing a little more on the finances, or focusing a little more on the return or the investment, or maybe even the risks. But it means that there's a bit more time provided for that delegate to really understand the topic and really understand what's required of them for the assessment. It's a real kind of proper learner journey, I think. You know, you get it wrong, you get time to then make amends, come back, and in doing so, hopefully you've understood it that bit better. The assessments are uploaded onto an ePortfolio system. So we have an ePortfolio which the delegates and the training providers are provided access to. The delegates will upload all of their business cases, research projects and presentations to that ePortfolio, and that is where the training providers would be able to go in, mark, comment, annotate, send back for review, send back for updates, and essentially that's where that information will stay when submitted to IOSH as a final mark, so that then we can also see those pieces of work. So if we need to do any QA, or if NCFE need to do a spot check as well, then that information is all held there on the ePortfolio for us. It's a very useful tool. It means actually as well that the training providers, you can upload any content that you wish the delegates to see. So if there's any key information, case studies, any additional learning that you want them to go through, you can upload all of those bits of information as well, and then all of your learners will be able to see that. The certificates are from NCFE. So as I mentioned at the start, we aren't an awarding body ourselves, we've partnered with one. So the certificates come from NCFE, they have both NCFE and IOSH logos, but that's where they will come from ultimately at the end. Okay, so we'll just move on to a little bit on marking. So some key questions we've been asked in the last few weeks and maybe the last few months is how long the assessments take to mark. So what we've done is we've taken a few examples had a look through those and kind of done a bit of that work for you to kind of give you a bit of a ballpark figure. So Unit 1, the business case, we would suggest that's around about 2,000 words and should take no more than about 45 minutes to an hour to mark and annotate. Again, there is no pass or fail, so if there is work that's needed to be done to help that delegate get a better understanding and do a second round, then that would potentially mean that there is more time required. But I think 45 minutes to an hour to do that final assessment. Unit 2, the research project, between 60 to 90 minutes. This one's a bit flexible though. It really does depend on the amount of written content that you've got to look through. The delegate may be providing things like audio from maybe some mentoring or coaching sessions. There might be some questionnaires that need to be gone through. There might be some different bits of research papers that need to be read and analysed as well. So it kind of depends on what the delegate is presenting to you. But we feel to, in the main, it would probably be between 60 and 90 minutes. And then Unit 3, the research and presentation, no more than 45 minutes for that one. So the presentation itself should be between 15 and 20 minutes. And it's followed by a bit of a Q&A that they will do within that assessment as well. So in watching all of that and writing up some notes, no more than about 45 minutes for that one. Okay, so a couple more extracts. So this is the sort of thing that would be provided to delegates and training providers. There are assessment guidance and task briefs that go through an introduction, again a summary of the unit and a brief. There are kind of a couple of versions of this dependent on whether you are a delegate or whether you are a training provider. The delegate will then understand from this brief exactly what's required of them and what the what to be submitting essentially, so what is expected of them when they submit. And then the one for training providers will go into a bit more detail explaining how to assess and mark as well. So in outline though, I would say that the learning outcomes, when they're reviewed, the learning outcomes have key terms within them, and as long as those key terms are used a bit like a checklist, then that, along with obviously a general feeling for the understanding level, and obviously whether it's their own work and things like that, that should make sure that delegate has covered everything. So for example, for the business case, there are certain elements that you would expect to find in a business case. So as long as those have all been covered and all the key terms that are found within the learning outcomes have also been covered, that checklist, as long as it's all gone through, that would basically enable a pass. Okay, so we'll just move on now to the course materials and the costs. So for the Level 3 qualification, there's £1,000 initial purchase price. That includes one textbook per trainer. So depending on how many trainers you have, you will receive as many as you require. These are a bit like your Bible, essentially. They are absolutely everything that the delegate will need to know and absorb to be able to pass the Level 3 qualification. So we need to make sure you've got enough of those to be able to annotate, scribble, highlight, everything that you need to make sure that your sessions run smoothly. You'll also get a set of printed trainer notes per organisation, then unlimited digital trainer notes on our course management system. So the same system you'd find Managing Safely on, that's where this is hosted as well. So as many printouts of that as you require. And also a digital delegate pack. So the digital delegate pack has been enabled so that it can be typed straight into. So dependent on the learner style or dependent on the way in which you like to run sessions, you would either want to print those out to be written onto, or they could be distributed so that they can use them digitally and maybe even send them and upload them onto the ePortfolio for you as well. And digital assessments. So again, we provide those assessment packs. Those 3 different types of assessment will stay as they are at the moment, and then only when it comes to review the qualification would they change. The access to the course management system, of course, is also included in that. There's then a £1,000 renewal fee per year and £100 delegate fee. Obviously, that includes the textbook and also the certificates. And as you would imagine, any replacement certificates, there's a fee for that, £40 for a replacement certificate when required. So moving on to trainer requirements. Each trainer has to be a graduate member of IOSH as a minimum. Of course, we would like you to be CPD compliant, as with all members of IOSH. Also, an approved IOSH training provider who is delivered and marked IOSH managing safely. The reason for that is, as I've said a couple of times, this is built on managing safely, so having a good understanding of what those delegates will have already learnt is essential. Also, we'd like the trainers to have significant business leadership experience. Similarly to, if you know the Leading Safely product, there is requirement to have business leadership experience in that. Or a qualification at level 5 in business that gives you that equivalence of knowledge. Also, a 3-year face-to-face training delivery experience as a minimum, and 3 years health and safety experience as well. Any information that you do provide, as it says there, will potentially be verified. So anything that you provide, such as referees and things like that, we may contact. Okay, moving on to the training provider requirements. These have actually changed very slightly since we first launched, and I think it's for the better, most definitely. So each training provider organisation, you must already be delivering managing safely. That will give you the majority, or at least the kind of core skills and processes already in place to be able to run this qualification. But then on top of that, we need you to either be already accredited by an awarding organisation for the delivery of regulated qualifications, or be able to demonstrate the required governance and procedures. So we do have a checklist and we do have a questionnaire that we can provide. So if you aren't already delivering a regulated qualification, but you do feel that you would meet the standard and you do have all of the required governance in place, we can go through that with you as an alternative to make sure that those sorts of things can be followed. Essentially, this is just to make sure that, like with a regulated qualification, that the certain checkpoints and processes are followed, and that there is no, conflict of interest, etc., and to make sure that there's tracking for everything that needs to be tracked, so that we have that kind of paper trail. Each training provider organisation needs to have an internal quality assurer, an IQA. That can be an employee or a contractor. They would be accountable and responsible for the quality assurance and assessment processes. You then need to have a separate lead trainer assessor. Again, could be an employee or a contractor, and they need to meet the trainer criteria and have experience of conducting level 3 assessments to occupational standards. I think the main changes to this, based on our previous version when we first launched, are the fact that we now would accept those who don't already deliver regulated qualifications. I think what that was doing is putting a bit of a glass wall up, and actually there are a number of training provider organisations who, although they may not already deliver a regulated qualifications, have absolutely everything set up to be able to. So we just need to make sure that that's in place, and I think that makes us a bit more flexible, but actually means that we can actually be really thorough in doing that checklist and making sure that every single piece is covered off. The IQA would need to be made available for a pre-approval conference call with IOSH. So the same team that you would deal with for the internal verifiers here at IOSH, they essentially would just host a call and go through a few questions with you with the IQA, just to ensure that everything's in place ahead of any delivery. Okay, I'm just going to take you through a couple of new bits of communication that we'll be sharing on social media or on the website, and hopefully you'll see some of these coming through. But whilst I do so, we're going to open up for a Q&A. If anyone would like to send any questions through, if you start popping those in now, and hopefully by the time I've gone through a couple of these images, we'll have a few questions to answer at the end. Okay, so first one, as you can see on your screen, other general certificates don't do the business, but IOSH's does. That really is a USP of this qualification. We have done analysis of what's on the market, and we have done analysis within organisations. Was in a meeting only 2 weeks ago, in which I think there was about 26 employers around the table who said that they would actually prefer to employ a business person and train them on safety and health, so that they have the required skills to be able to implement. And that was I would say it's an eye-opener, but actually I think it's something that we already knew, and I think that the safety and health, basically us in safety and health, we know that already, we just need to do something about it. And I think we're taking steps to get there, and this qualification is that first step, providing everyone with that knowledge. The next one I'll show you, poles apart, again really kind of pushing that this is something different. So this qualification isn't like anything on the market. It will set you apart from the rest. When looking at employability, there'll be a number of different skills that you can add to your CV on completing this qualification. We just want to set the standard, make sure that we're not just focusing on one side of a role. Safety and health professionals are having to more and more these days don 15 different hats. They're not just a safety and health professional, there's security, they are everything. So we need to make sure that they're well-balanced professionals that can communicate on all levels. And then one that I think potentially you will have seen, the general certificate, tick that box, which you may have seen on social media already. Essentially just saying we're setting ourselves apart from the rest. We're trying to make sure that we lead the way, we put a line in the sand, and we set new standards for safety and health professionals moving forward. Okay, so I think we're ready for Q&A. I'll just hand over to Jo, who I think might have a few questions in front of her, and hopefully I'll answer everything you need. If we don't get to everything, as Jo said at the beginning, we will make sure we cover all of the questions and send out a Q&A document at the end.
Okay, I'm going to start from the top. So will 2 years experience be required to gain Tech IOSH status, or will it be automatic Tech IOSH status, as in will the course give you Tech IOSH status automatically?
Okay, so because this qualification is 2 years, it can be up to 2 years long, along with the experience that you would have gained within that time, you would get Tech. But I would say, probably to be very, very clear, this gives you the technical knowledge to get to technical membership. You do need to make sure that the experience is demonstrated as well. So whether you are on the job already and you're doing this qualification as part of your role, you may be able to provide that as experience. But if not, you would need to provide that 2 years experience on top. So sorry if that was a bit misleading, but yes, it's the qualification. It gives you the technical side, but you do still need the experience, yeah.
What will IOSH be doing to promote the qualification as a recognised alternative to the NCFE General Certificate? How will we overcome the obstacle of NGC currently still being perceived as the most valuable Level 3 qualification?
Yeah, that's a really difficult one. This is one of the reasons why some of the little pieces of communications we've been doing more recently are a bit bold. I think we recognised that we can't kind of tiptoe our way onto the market. We really do need to shout about this. As I mentioned at the beginning, this qualification is on the Ofqual framework, and it is recognised in Dubai. But work we will be doing is to, and we are currently doing, is to get it recognised globally. And I think the more we do that, the more we get this out there and the more we have it recognised in different regions, we will then be able to essentially show the world that this is something that is applicable across the globe, and show its strength. But I think really it's the messaging. We are trying to be bold on this messaging and trying to demonstrate the need. And as many different organisations that we can have as case studies, we will use those, and we'll make sure that we take that evidence and roll it forward. It's been a bit of a slow burner to start with, I'll be honest in saying that, and I think a lot of the time that's because people want someone to try it first before they dip their toe in the water. We have now had a number of delegates go through the qualification, and training providers run it. So based on those, we'll be able to get, again, some more case studies, some more examples, some quotes, and hopefully that will be encouragement for the rest to start moving forward as well. But yeah, it's very difficult. They are well established in the marketplace, and we are, an alternative to that. And we just need to make sure we try and really shout from the rooftops about what makes us different and what makes this different and what makes it essential, really. Yeah.
Okay, so another NCFE related but slightly different. Are you looking to compete with NCFE, or are you marketing this as an additional qualification people might want?
I would say we are competition. As with everything, a lot of the time with qualifications, people will choose one at each level. They'll look to go 3, 5, 6, 7. If people wish to do multiple qualifications, then we are doing some work at the moment to see how we can aid that. So I know that this qualification is 121 hours, but if someone's already done a NCFE certificate and they're looking to do this as well, we need to see what we can do to help that along. But we are a competitor, and I think it covers everything that you need to cover as a level 3 and more. And so yes, we are a competitor.
Okay. How are the assessments marked? If marked internally, what support guidance is there on how they are marked?
So I probably only spent a small amount of time on that, I suppose, on this webinar, but there are documents for training providers that take you through the learning outcomes, the essential key terms, and also there are documents that talk through exactly what to expect and what the breakdown of an assessment should look like. So for an example, on a business case, we give an example of what a business case should include, so the different headers that you would expect to see, and then that along with the learning outcomes and the key terms, that would be then used as a bit of a checklist. And as long as those things are checked off and everything is covered, that constitutes a pass. But yes, so there is information provided in the pack for that to be done. Any further support that's required, obviously, feel free to contact IOSH and the customer engagement team or the verifiers, and they can probably answer any key questions you've got. But and anything that comes up as a common theme, we'll obviously see if there's anything we need to add to our course management system to support there. But we think you've got everything you need, and I think it will just be kind of finding your way through the first few, and then you'll probably get into a bit of a rhythm with it.
Are there any plans to add a level 5, 6 qualification to work towards once this qualification has been completed?
Oh, I don't know how much I can say, but I'm going to say yes. Okay, so yes, we are looking at developing a level 6 qualification. We don't have timelines at this stage. However, most definitely, we want to make sure that, especially, being a membership body, requiring qualifications to get to different levels of membership, it's been a bit crazy in the past that we haven't had our own route and haven't had our own way of checking. So yeah, we will definitely be looking at that, and that is being worked on now.
The next question is, how many times can the trainer refer back to the delegate, as in the assignments and marking, so we know that they've achieved the correct standard?
We don't have a maximum on that. I think it will be down to individual training providers to probably provide their own guidelines on maybe how frequently they think that the delegates should be submitting. Had this conversation in a session the other day. There is no maximum. We have no say in that. However, you'll probably get a feel for it after maybe a few to say that, okay, well, we'll maybe say submit it once, and then we'll give you 2 attempts or whatever. But there isn't really a cap on that, and it will just be up to training providers to. I've noticed on another question that I can just see there. It needs to be worked out and costed. Obviously, there is a cost of time, so it may be worth just trying it once, seeing if there's a cap that you want to implement. But from IOSH's perspective, there isn't one.
Can the Unit 3 presentation be delivered remotely, i.e. through video conferencing software?
Yeah, the Unit 3 presentation doesn't actually have to be done live at all. So the Unit 3 presentation would be something that, we foresaw it being recorded and uploaded onto the Eportfolio as a video. Or even, there are different ways of doing this. It could be a video and also then attaching the notes and the presentation to support that. But obviously there are, ways of doing it through Skype, etc. But I think for us, so that we can keep it on file, uploading a video was preferred.
Okay, so the next question I have is from David, and he says, a big problem he has is when speaking to prospective attendees, since we no longer have a mandatory managing safely refresher after 3 years, many have lapsed the 3 years required to then enrol onto this course. So when they add the additional 3 days for managing safely and then this course afterwards, they see no benefit of taking this over the NCFE General Certificate. What advice can you give on that?
I suppose one thing to note is obviously that there is the recognised prior learning. So if they were to take the Managing Safely Certificate again, there are a number of hours, 15 hours, that can be taken off of Unit 1 because that knowledge is covered in the Managing Safely. It is a difficult question. I think, we did that to try and be more flexible, to make sure that we're not imposing strict timelines on organisations. Some organisations have different requirements. They might refresh their training every 4 years or every 5 years, and imposing a 3-year limit was actually causing issues on that side, but totally understand that actually, again, that then flip reverse, they might cause, concerns or queries with regards to the qualification and the 3 years. All I can probably say is that, we have made sure that we've tried to get the RPL recognised, and as long as that's mentioned when registering those delegates, that will be knocked off, and that it doesn't need to be covered again. We do also have a document that can be shared if required, that shows you where those hours sit as well. So specifically, Unit 1, Part 1, for example, how many hours can you take off that? Unit 1, Part 2, how many hours can you take off that?
And it's important to say that the refresher is only one day, not 3 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, the refresher is 1 day. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So if they are still, if they can do that refresher in 1 day, then that's also accepted. So yeah.
Would it be possible to check for plagiarism when assessing the research projects?
Yeah, we would urge to check for things like plagiarism. I think that's, it's a tricky one. There's an element of trust when doing things like research projects and things like that, when doing kind of vocational style learning. It's something that probably we would spot check, but obviously the training provider would also need to be keeping an eye on for their delegates specifically.
Another question, can the IQA also deliver the course?
The internal quality assurer, I find that one difficult to answer because I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I have a feeling not. And I think the reason for that is because of conflict of interest. If the IQA was to deliver the course themselves and then they had to quality assure themselves, I think that then causes an issue. So I would like to say no, but I will take that one away and just make sure. I don't want to mislead anyone.
Another question is this just centred around the UK, or would it be acceptable to the international market?
Yeah, this qualification, we've made sure that we've given it that global slant. We haven't focused too heavily on any particular legislation and law over and above what is essential and required for the level 3. And we've tried to make sure that if this is delivered anywhere else globally, that it is flexible enough to add those different pieces of legislation and best practice in. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are doing work now as well to get this recognised on other frameworks. We had conversations only the other day to say that in particular parts of the world, if a qualification isn't recognised on their framework, then the funding isn't available for that delegate to actually go through the qualification, and of course that then causes issues. So we want to try and get this recognised in as many different countries as we possibly can, bearing in mind our membership base as well, and where we've got priority areas and things like that. So we'll be working through those in the next few months, across the next year as well, I would imagine.
Is there a maximum number of delegates per course?
That's a good question. I think we stuck with the same as managing safely, which is 20. However, again, I think the training providers, you guys will be able to determine that for yourselves. It really will depend on kind of how one-on-one you like to be with your delegates. I know that on some qualifications they like to cap at kind of 8 to 10 different people in the room, so that they can make sure that there really is kind of dedicated time. And obviously we don't set things like the retail price for any of our products for that very reason. Everyone likes to work slightly differently. We want to make sure you've got the relevant knowledge and training materials, but how you wish to deliver is totally up to you.
What is the main difference between this course and the NCFE certificate?
I would say the main difference between this course and the NCFE certificate is the focus on business and return for business, and implementation specifically. So I think, something that we hear a lot is that safety and health professionals are hugely knowledgeable when it comes to technical skills on safety and health, but actually knowing how to turn that into something tangible within organizations and turn that into something that they can communicate to, for example, the finance director. How do you talk to your finance director in an organization and explain to them that they need to spend X amount of money on some new safety equipment, and actually get that through to them as a positive and as a, what will be the return for investing in that? So I think this qualification kind of turns that corner and turns skills and technical skills into practical skills. And I think that really for us is probably the biggest thing that it does differently to alternative qualifications on the market. It makes them a more rounded business person as well as being a safety and health professional.
Would this qualification be suitable for second, third year apprentices?
Depends on the apprenticeship, but I would imagine yes. I know that there is a apprenticeship that's just been launched, which is the level 3 safety and health and environment technician apprenticeship. And the learning in this qualification, so if you took the textbook from this along with managing safely and environment for business, which is another syllabus we have, if you took those 3 things together, that would get you through absolutely everything you need to know to be able to get through that through that apprenticeship within the 2 years. So it will depend on the apprenticeship and what is required to be covered. But I know for a fact that with regards to the newest one that I know from the Institute for Apprenticeships and the Trailblazer Group, that level 3 technician, that it does cover almost everything you need to cover, and there's just a couple of extra bits you need to do through managing and the environment for business. I hope that helps.
Okay, next question I've got, for clarity, does the training organisation at a minimum require 3 people to deliver this course, i.e. the trainer, the IQA and the LTA?
The IQA and the LTA can be, they can be contractors. So one of the reasons we've done that is because we do recognise that there are training providers out there that have, 50 plus employees, but there's also one-man bands out there that are more than qualified to deliver these sorts of qualifications, but maybe just don't have permanent resource. So you don't need to have 3 people on the books as such. We just need to make sure that you have those people at least contracted on an as and when basis to conduct those pieces of, basically to do those jobs.
I'll just go through, sorry, there's a couple of duplications, but there's another one there about the apprenticeship. There's one here about how would a delegate convince their employer to ask for this qualification rather than the NEBOSH, the NGC or IGC?
So I think I think this is the next piece of information, or the next maybe document that we maybe should pull together for you guys, actually, because there are some bits of information that we've shared on this, and as I say, with its business angle, I think they will see more return, and they'll actually see an improved kind of implementation from safety and health professionals. As I say, we've heard from multiple different organisations that they would actually rather employ a business person and send them on a level 3 safety and health qualification to get them trained up that way. But in doing this qualification, there's no need for that because they go through both in one. It's a one-stop shop for both the business skills and the technical skills for a safety and health professional. So I think, I think actually as an action I'd like to take away, to pull together a one-pager on what would an employee say to their employer to encourage them for this over the other. I think we've said it in a number of places elsewhere, here and there, and we've got information on the website, but I think that document, if that could be provided, that would be very, very useful for you. But I think we know what we want to say, and as I say, this is a one-stop shop. You will actually have someone who not only knows the technical, but they can actually turn it into results. They can actually, help write business cases and turn the organisation around and actually make sure that health and safety is actually woven into the core of an organisation as opposed to it being kind of an add-on function. But yeah, giving you guys something like that to provide to employers and employees, that would be really useful. So I think, yeah, that's a good question, and I think I'll take that one away. Thank you.
And we've got time for one more question, but would we be allowing training providers to deliver this qualification through eLearning?
At this stage, that would be a no. However, it's something that we are looking to develop in the future. I'm not sure exactly when. I know that it's on a roadmap, but our roadmap, of course, goes to 2022. So we need to figure that one out. The only reason I think we are a no is because of the fact this is obviously a regulated qualification, and we need to make sure that everything's covered in a particular way. But I will take it away again as well, just to see if, for example, in the self-study and in the bits that the training providers wish to cover, whether or not kind of homemade e-learning to cover some of the knowledge would be accepted. So I will I'll take that away and just confirm. Any further questions on the qualification? There is a customer engagement team, so there is a contact. I think it's courses@iosh.com. So feel free to send any further questions through there if there's anything you really feel that has been missed. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Victoria. As I said earlier on, we will be sharing this presentation with you at a later date, and the webinar will also be available to view. Thank you.